You know, in a world that's all about tech, you just assume our classrooms are packed with kids learning to code. But what if I told you the exact opposite is happening? The real story of computing in schools, well, it's way more surprising and, frankly, a lot more worrying than you might think.
I mean, it's a totally logical question, right? Tech is everywhere, so these skills have to be a top priority in schools. But the data? Well, the data tells a completely different story.
Just look at this number. In 2023, only 28% of students in England took any kind of computing qualification for their GCSEs. That's not even a third of them. And this number gets even more shocking when you see where we were just a decade ago.
Check out the sheer scale of this drop. Back in 2013, over 70% of students were taking these courses. Today, that number's cratered to just 28%. That is not a dip, it's a total collapse. So what on earth happened?
This isn't just some statistical blip. We're talking about a hidden crisis in our education system. And, as a new 2024 report shows, it's got some really serious consequences for our future, especially for some students. A 2024 report from King's College London really gets to the heart of it. See, it's not just that fewer students are taking computing overall, it's about who is being left behind. The report found that the impact has been particularly devastating for girls. To really understand this massive decline, we've got to go back to 2014. That's when a huge curriculum change created what is basically a tale of two very different subjects. See, before 2014, students took something called ICT, Information and Communications Technology. It was pretty broad, very practical. It covered things like digital media and just general digital literacy. The new curriculum scrapped that and replaced it with computer science, which is way more narrow, way more theoretical, and focuses almost entirely on heavy-duty coding and math.
And here's the direct result of that switch. Under the old, broader ICT system, girls' participation was at 43%. In today's computer science classes, that number has been cut in half, down to just 21%. The conclusion is kind of unavoidable. This new, narrower subject is actively pushing girls out.
So why is this happening? Well, hearing from a Year 10 student really says it all. The new subject has this reputation, this perception of being only for the really smart, and that creates an environment that feels exclusive and, honestly, not much fun, instead of creative and inviting.
And this perception, that the subject is too narrow and unwelcoming, has led to a wider student exodus. It's driven by a tough mix of how the course is seen and, well, how it actually is.
The report basically identifies four key factors driving students away. First, the curriculum is seen as too narrow and rigid. Second, it's perceived as being incredibly difficult. And third, a lack of diverse role models just reinforces this damaging stereotype that computing is a subject for brainy boys.
Okay, so that perception of difficulty is one thing, but is there any truth to it? Is the course actually statistically harder to do well in than, say, biology or history? And here's the bombshell. According to one teacher, the answer is a shocking yes. It's not just a feeling that the course is harder, it's a statistical reality. The grade boundaries are literally set up in a way that makes it objectively more difficult to get a top grade in computer science than in other subjects. It's so well known that parents are actually telling their kids to avoid it. So why does all this matter beyond the classroom? Because this crisis in education is creating a huge economic problem down the line. A massive skill shortage that could impact the entire country. And this isn't just a local issue, you know? The alarms have been sounding for years about the need for more digital skills, not fewer. By pushing students away from computing, we're basically setting ourselves up for a future where we just don't have the talent we need to compete on a global stage.
All right, so the problem is clear, and the stakes are really high. The good news? The report also offers a pretty clear path forward. It's time for a system reboot.
So what's the solution? We can't just tinker around the edges. As one school leader puts it, the answer is a brand new qualification from the ground up, one that mixes the technical programming with all those practical and creative skills we lost when ICT got scrapped.
And here's the roadmap. First, you've got to reform the GCSE itself, make it broader and more appealing. Second, widen the curriculum in the earlier years to bring back creativity and practical projects. Third, you have to actively reframe the whole narrative by showing off diverse role models. And finally, create inclusive classrooms where every single student feels like they belong.
And through all of these recommendations, one message comes through louder and clearer than anything else. Whatever we do, the intervention has to start early.
And why so early? Because as one teacher explains, in those first couple years of secondary school,
The stereotypes just haven't cemented yet. That is the critical window to spark an interest in computing for everyone, not just for a select few.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty fundamental question. The choices we're making in our classrooms today are literally programming the society of tomorrow. Are we going to code a future that's narrow and exclusive, or one that's broad, creative, and open to all? The time for a reboot is now.